Although, politically, the legacy of imperialism in South Africa has generally had negative repercussions, positive effects impacted the country as well.
What do you know about South Africa?
South Africa's history is one of war and racial segregation. For millions of years, the only inhabitants of South Africa were natives, but in 1488, the Portuguese became the first Europeans to reach Africa's tip. The Portuguese, however, showed little interest in colonizing South Africa, and it was not until 1651 that the Dutch East India Company sent Johann van Riebeeck to create a permanent settlement. By the 1750s, the Dutch were bringing slaves from Indonesia and Madagascar to help them farm. Many of these Dutch farmers began trekking into neighboring African lands. These nomadic Dutch settlers became known as Boers. By the end of the 18th century, Dutch control in South Africa began to fade, so in 1795, the British took over to prevent it from falling under French rule. In 1815, at the Congress of Vienna, South Africa was officially named a British power. In the 1840s, the discovery of diamonds and gold in South Africa brought vast numbers of immigrants from Britain, Europe, and Asia. Remember any traces of news about gold or diamonds being mined?
Yeah, every once in a while there'd be an accident. As a matter of fact, your grandfather's father died in a mining accident way back.
Over the remainder of the 19th century, the Boers became increasingly fed up with British rule and began establishing their own independent territories. In 1877, the Boers started a full-out rebellion against the British, known as the Anglo-Boer War. The Boers had several initial victories, but by 1900, the Boers' 52,000 soldiers were no match for Britain's 450,000, and the Boer Free State was declared a British territory. In 1909, the South Africa Act brought all South African colonies together to form the Union of South Africa. The first elected government of this union, the South African National Party, promoted pro-white agendas. By 1913, 90% of South Africa's land was owned by the white minority. In 1948, the National Party established an official legal system of segregation, known as apartheid. Everyone was forced into residential areas set aside for 4 different racial groups: white, black, colored, and Indian. Non-whites were not given equal voting rights and had segregated public services, medical facilities, and education. The apartheid movement continued until the mid-1990s. Can you tell me a little bit about when you were in South Africa and who you are?
Yeah, my name's Linda Matt, and I was in South Africa from 1969 to 1971. It was during apartheid, and I was 11 years old, actually 10 and a half to turning 13.
Okay. Did you notice apartheid against the blacks and Indians by the whites?
Yeah, the things that were most visible to me, because it was immediate when I got off the plane. First of all, they had bathrooms that were segregated, a bathroom for whites and a bathroom for blacks. And generally there was, I think they said coloreds as well, and coloreds meant everybody but non-whites. Okay, and the same thing for drinking fountains. The drinking fountains were segregated. And then to expand a little about what happened once we left the airport, I realized that restaurants were segregated, and also stores, markets, grocery stores. It was all segregated.
Safe living in South Africa today?
I'm not sure that I would, because I still think there's a whole lot of racial tension in South Africa, and I would be, not that I would care, but because the people are so, it's so ingrained in them to keep the races divided, that I think it would make it very difficult to live in South Africa, because I'm not a racist, and I wouldn't be around. I don't think I could actually live around people who are racists, because I couldn't tolerate that.
Once apartheid ended, anti-apartheid activist Nelson Mandela was elected the first president of the new free South Africa. Although many racial barriers have been broken down, racial tensions linger. Over the last decade, South Africa's economy has dropped drastically. South Africa's currency has lost about half of its value compared to other world currencies. South Africa currently has the 32nd highest gross domestic product in the world.
There's not enough food or water to give to the people in South Africa, and somehow they just need like the health care there and really good schools for them, and give the kids there a really good health for them.
Yeah, thank you, Bailey.
How was the economy of South Africa when you were there?
It was good. I mean, there wasn't any economic problem. I don't, I was younger then, so I don't remember a lot about the job market, but I don't recall anything much about unemployment. I think for the white population, people were employed, and then without too much problem, and then all the other jobs, the menial labor and everything else like that, they had a lot of staff.
I think they're heading in the right direction as opposed to apartheid, which was very repressive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The British brought modern technologies and industry to Africa. The imperialists introduced the Africans to more efficient farming methods. They introduced new forms of transportation and helped boost South Africa's economy by utilizing their natural resources. European presence in South Africa caused the separation of land, leading to feuds between native tribes. The Europeans often imported slaves from nearby countries to help with farming and manual labor. Although imperialists were able to gain a strong and cheap workforce, they paid locals close to nothing in exchange for labor. Although new religions and philosophical ideas were introduced to the Africans, they were often forced upon them. Resisting imperialism often led to acts of violence and genocide.
Well, imperialism is a bad thing because people go to places they're not from and often enslave or mistreat the local inhabitants, and I think that was the case in South Africa.
Although imperialism is over, the effects of British rule can still be seen in South Africa's politics, economy, and culture.